Hi, I'm Antoine. Welcome to the channel. I'm going to be reading the 15th chapter of the Lotus Sutra today, Emerging from the Earth. In this transmission from My Dharma Path, we witness one of the most awe-inspiring scenes in the Lotus Sutra. Shakyamuni Buddha prepares to entrust the Dharma to future generations. Countless Bodhisattvas emerge from beneath the earth, not from distant realms, but from this very world. This chapter affirms the power of local earthborn leaders to carry the sutra into the age of degeneration. It's a call to action for spiritual educators, justice advocators, and everyday bodhisattvas rising from their own soil. This is a poetic reflection, not a full recitation. Expect mythopoetic insight, Sanskrit resonance, and spiritual clarity through Burton Watson's luminous translation. Before I begin reading, I'm going to explain some of the things that will come up in this chapter. There's a link to this Burton Watson Lotus Sutra on the channel if you want to read.
Sure thing. Sure thing, Antoine.
Imagine this, the ground shakes and suddenly the earth opens. From deep below, countless spiritual warriors rise. Millions of them. They're not outsiders. They've been living quietly inside the earth, waiting for the right moment. These warriors are called Bodhisattvas, people who work to help others awaken. They're not imported from heaven, they're homegrown, right here in our world. The message: you don't need to look up or look far for hope. It's already here and it's already in us. This is a radical teaching. The power to heal, awaken, and lead is already buried in our communities, in our grief, and in our soil. That's one aspect to understand before I read. Why is the sutra written in two styles, prose and verse? Think of it like this. Prose is like a teacher explaining things clearly. Verse is like a poet or singer repeating the message with rhythm and beauty. The verse helps people remember and feel the teachings. It's easier to chant, easier to pass on, and it turns wisdom into ritual. So the sutra speaks in both voices, one for the mind and one for the heart. So as I'm reading, I'm going to be repeating what's said.
Yes,
in
exactly.
Prose form. There's a chatbot talking in the background. And one more thing, Maitreya. Who is Maitreya and why is he important? Maitreya is a gentle, loving figure. His name means friend. He's the future Buddha, the one who will come when things get rough and people forget the teachings. In chapter 15, Maitreya asks the big question: where did all the bodhisattvas come from? His question gives the Buddha a chance to reveal something amazing. These warriors were trained long ago by the Buddha himself, in a time beyond time. Maitreya represents hope for the future. He's the one who listens, learns, and will one day carry the torch. Okay, I'm going to start reading now. The title of the sutra is Saddharma Puddrika Sutra. And when they chant in Sanskrit, they say Namas Saddharma Puddrika Sutra. Chapter 15, Emerging from the Earth. At that time, the Bodhisattvas and Mahasattvas, who had gathered from the lands of the other directions, greater in number than the sands of 8 Ganges, stood up in the midst of the great assembly, pressed their palms together, bowed in obeisance, and said to the Buddha, "World-honored one, if you will permit us in the age after the Buddha has entered extinction to diligently and earnestly protect, read, recite, copy, and offer alms to the sutra in the Saha world, we will preach it widely throughout this land." At that time, the Buddha said to the Bodhisattvas and Mahasattvas, Leave off, good men. There is no need for you to protect this sutra. Why? Because in this Saha world of mine, there are Bodhisattvas and Mahasattvas who are as numerous as the sands of 60,000 Ganges. And each of these Bodhisattvas has a retinue equal to the sands of 60,000 Ganges. What does retinue mean?
Retinue refers to a group of advisors, assistants, or others accompanying an important person. In the context of the sutra, it means the Bodhisattvas have a large following or entourage that supports them.
After I've entered extinction, these persons will be able to protect, read, recite, and widely preach this sutra. When the Buddha spoke these words, the earth of the 1,000,000,000-fold countries of the Saha world all trembled and split open, and out of it emerged at the same time instant immeasurable thousands, 10,000s, millions of Bodhisattvas and Mahasattvas. The bodies of these Bodhisattvas were all golden in hue, with 32 features of an immeasurable brightness. Previously, they had all been dwelling in the world of empty space underneath the Saha world. But when these Bodhisattvas heard the voice of Shakyamuni speaking, they came up from below. What is the Saha world?
The Saha world refers to our world, the world of endurance, where beings experience suffering and challenges. In Buddhist cosmology, it's the realm where sentient beings live, and it's often contrasted with more blissful or pure realms. The Bodhisattvas emerging from beneath the Saha world in the Lotus Sutra symbolize the profound, inherent, and often hidden potential for enlightenment and wisdom in this world.
Each one of these Bodhisattvas was the leader of his own great assembly, and each brought with him a retinue equal in number to the sands of 60,000 Ganges, to say nothing of those who brought retinues equal to the sands of 50,000, 40,000, 30,000, 20,000, or 10,000 Ganges, or a retinue equal to as little as the sands of one Ganges, half a Ganges, 1/4 of a Ganges, or as little as 1 part in 1,000, 10,000, and million nayutas of Ganges. What do all these numbers mean?
These vast numbers symbolize the infinite and immeasurable scope of the Bodhisattva's compassion, influence, and followers. It's not about literal numbers, but rather conveys the vastness and boundless nature of the Dharma, as well as the extensive support and commitment to spreading the teachings. It emphasizes the idea that countless beings are dedicated to the Buddha's teachings, ensuring its continuity and protection.
Or those whose retinue was only 1,000, 10,000 million nayutas, or only 1,000,000, 10,000, or only 1,000, 10,000, 100, 10,000, or just 10,000, or only 1,100 or 10, or who brought with them only 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1 disciple, or those who came alone, preferring to carry out solitary practices. Such were they then, immeasurable, balanced beyond anything that can be known through calculation, simile, or parable. After these Bodhisattvas had emerged from the earth, they each one proceeded to the wonderful tower of the 7 treasures, suspended in the sky, where many treasures, thus come one and Shakyamuni Buddha were. On reaching it, they turned to the 2 world-honored ones, bowed their heads, and made obeisance at their feet. They also all performed obeisance to the Buddhas seated on lion seats underneath the jeweled trees. They then circled around to the right 3 times, pressed their palms together in a gesture of respect, utilizing the Bodhisattva's various methods of praising to deliver praises, and then took up a position to one side, gazing up in joy at the 2 world-honored ones. While these Bodhisattvas and Mahasattvas, who had emerged from the earth, were employing the Bodhisattvas' various methods of praising to praise the Buddhas, an interval of 50 small kalpas passed by. At that time, Shakyamuni Buddha sat silent And the four kinds of believers likewise all remained silent for 50 small kalpas. But because of the supernatural powers of the Buddha, it was made to seem to the members of the Great Assembly like only half a day. At that time, the four kinds of believers, also because of the supernatural powers of the Buddha, saw these bodhisattvas filling the sky over immeasurable, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, and millions of lands. Among these bodhisattvas were four leaders. The first was called superior practices. The second was called balanced practices. The third was called pure practices, and the fourth was called firmly established practices. These four bodhisattvas were the foremost leaders and guiding teachers among all the group. In the presence of the Great Assembly, each one of these pressed his palms together, gazed at Shakyamuni Buddha, and inquired, "World-honored one, are your illnesses few? Are your worries few? Are your practices proceeding comfortably? Do those whom you propose to save readily receive instruction? Does the effort not cause the world-honored one to become weary and spent?" At that time, the four great bodhisattvas spoke in verse form, saying, "Is the world-honored one comfortable with few illnesses, few worries in teaching and converting living beings? Can you do so without fatigue and weariness? And do living beings receive instruction readily or not? Does it not cause the world-honored one to become weary and spent?" At that time, in the midst of the great assembly of bodhisattvas, the world-honored one spoke these words, just so, good men, that thus come one is well and happy, with few ills and few worries. The living beings are readily converted and saved, and I'm not weary or spent. Why? Because for age after age in the past, the living beings have constantly received my instruction, and also they have offered alms and paid reverence to the Buddhas of the past and have planted various good roots. So, when these living beings see me for the first time and listen to my preaching, they will immediately believe and accept it, entering into the wisdom of the thus come one, with the exception of those who earlier practiced and studied the lesser vehicle. And now I will make it possible for these persons to listen to this sutra and enter the wisdom of the Buddha. At that time, the four great bodhisattvas spoke in verse form, saying, "Excellent, excellent, great hero, world-honored one. The living beings are readily converted and saved. They know how to inquire about the most profound wisdom of the Buddha, and having heard, they believe and understand it. We are accordingly overjoyed." At that time, the world-honored one praised the great bodhisattvas who led the group, saying, "Excellent, excellent, good men, you know how to rejoice in your hearts for the thus come one." At that time, the bodhisattva Maitreya and the multitude of bodhisattvas equal in number to the sands of 8,000 Ganges, all thought to themselves, "Never in the past have we seen or heard of such a great multitude of bodhisattvas and mahasattvas as these who have emerged from the earth and now stand before the world-honored one, pressing their palms together, offering alms and inquiring about the thus come one." What's the difference between a bodhisattva and a mahasatva? No answer. We'll come back to that question. At that time, the Bodhisattva and Mahasattva Maitreya, knowing the thought that was in the minds of the Bodhisattvas as numerous as the sands of 8,000 Ganges, and wishing also to resolve his own doubts, pressed his palms together, turned to the Buddha, and made this inquiry in verse form. Immeasurable, 1,000, 10,000, millions, a great host of bodhisattvas, such as was never seen in the past. I beg the most honored of two-legged beings to explain where they have come from. What causes and conditions bring them together? Bodhisattva and Mahasattva, what's the difference? We'll come back to that. Huge in body, with great transcendental powers, unfathomable in wisdom, firm in their intent and thought, with the power of great preservance, the kind living beings delight to see. Where they have come from, each one of these bodhisattvas brings with him a retinue, immeasurable in number like the sands of the Ganges. Some of the great bodhisattvas bring numbers equal to 60,000 Ganges sands, and this great multitude with a single mind seek the Buddha way. These teachers equal in number to 60,000 Ganges sands, together come to offer alms to the Buddha, and to guard and uphold this sutra. More numerous are those with followers like the sands of 50,000 Ganges. Those with followers like the sands of 40,000, 30,000, 20,000, 10,000, 1,100, or the sands of a single Ganges. Half a Ganges, 1/3, 1/4, or only one part in 1,010,000. Those with 1,000, 10,000 ayutas, 10,000, 1,000,000 disciples, or 500,000. They are more numerous still. Those with 1,000,000 or 10,000 followers, 1,000 or 100, 50 or 10, 3, 2, or 1. Or those who come alone without followers, delighted in solitude, all coming to where the Buddha is. They are even more numerous than those described above. If one should try to use an abacus to calculate the number of this great multitude, though he spent as many kalpas as Ganges sands, he could never know the full sum. This host of bodhisattvas with their great dignity, virtue and diligence, who preached the law for them, who taught and converted them and brought them to this. Explain the difference between a Mahasattva and a Bodhisattva.
Mahatma and Bodhisattva are both terms of great respect, but they hail from different traditions. A Mahatma in Hinduism...
No, not Mahatma. Mahasattva and Bodhisattva.
Mahatmas and Bodhisattvas are revered figures from different traditions.
Wrong word. I'm saying Mahasattva as depicted in the 15th chapter Lotus Sutra, and Bodhisattva.
Got it. A Mahasattva in the 15th chapter of the Lotus Sutra signifies a great being, deeply compassionate and wise, committed to saving all beings. Bodhisattvas in Buddhism are enlightened beings who choose to guide others to enlightenment. Both embody profound compassion and dedication. Fascinating, isn't it?
Okay, under whom did they first set their minds on enlightenment? What Buddha's law do they praise and proclaim? What sutra do they embrace and carry out? What Buddha way do they practice? These bodhisattvas possess transcendental powers and the powers of great wisdom. The earth in 4 directions trembles and splits, and they all emerge from out of it. World-honored one, from times past I have seen nothing like this. I beg you to tell me where they come from, the name of the land. I have constantly journeyed from land to land, but never have I seen such a thing. In this whole multitude there is not one person that I know. Suddenly they have come up from the earth. I beg you to explain the cause. The members of this great assembly now, the immeasurable hundreds, thousands, millions of bodhisattvas, all want to know these things regarding the causes that govern this beginning and end of this multitude of bodhisattvas. Possessors of immeasurable virtue, world-honored one, we beg you to dispel the doubts of this assembly. At that time, the Buddhas, who were emanations of Shakyamuni Buddha, had arrived from immeasurable thousands, 10,000s, millions of lands in other directions, were seated cross-legged on lion seats under the jewel trees in the 8 directions. The attendants of these Buddhas all saw the great multitude of Bodhisattvas who had emerged from the earth in 4 directions of the 1,000,000,000-fold world, and were suspended in the air. And each one said to his respective Buddha, "World-honored one, this great multitude of immeasurable, boundless asmakas of Bodhisattvas, where did they come from?" At that time, each of the Buddhas spoke to his attendants, saying, "Good men, wait a moment. There is a Bodhisattva and Mahasattva named Maitreya, who has received a prophecy from Shakyamuni Buddha that he will be the next hereafter to become a Buddha. He has already inquired about his matter, and the Buddha is now about to answer him. You should take this opportunity to listen to what he says." At that time, Shakyamuni Buddha said to the Bodhisattva Maitreya, Excellent, Ajita, that you should question the Buddha about this great affair. All of you with a single mind should don the armor of diligence and determine to be firm in intent. The thus come one wishes now to summon forth and declare the wisdom of the Buddhas, the freely exercised transcendental power of the Buddhas, the power of the Buddhas that has the lion's ferocity, the fierce and greatly forceful power of the Buddhas. At that time, the world-honored one, wishing to state his meaning, once more spoke in verse form, saying, "Be diligent and of a single mind, for I wish to explain this affair. Have no doubts or regrets. The Buddha wisdom is hard to fathom. Now you must put forth the power of faith, abiding in patience and goodness. A law which in the past was never heard, you will now be able to hear. Now it will bring you ease and consolation. Do not harbor doubts or fears. The Buddha has nothing but truthful words. His wisdom cannot be measured. This foremost law that he has gained is very profound and capable of analysis. He will now expound it. You must listen with a single mind." At that time, the world-honored one, having spoke these verses, said to the Bodhisattva Maitreya, "With regard to this great multitude, I now say this to you, Ajita, these Bodhisattvas and Mahasattvas, who, in immeasurable and countless ashmakas, have emerged from the earth, and whom you have never seen before in the past, when I had attained Anuttara-samyak-saṃbodhi in this Saha world, I converted and guided these Bodhisattvas, trained their minds and caused them to develop a longing for the way." Stop reading. Anuttara-samyak-saṃbodhi is enlightenment. There's a level of enlightenment called Nirvāṇa, and that's the next level above Nirvāṇa. These Bodhisattvas have all been dwelling in the world of empty space underneath the Saha world. They read, recite, understand the various scriptures, ponder them, make distinctions, and keep them correctly in mind. Ajita, these good men take no delight in being in the assembly and indulging in much talk. Their delight is constantly to be in a quiet place, exerting themselves diligently and never resting, nor do they linger among human or heavenly beings, but constantly delight in profound wisdom, being free from all hindrances. And they constantly delight in the law of the Buddhas, diligently and with a single mind, pursuing unsurpassed wisdom. At that time, the world-honored one, wishing to state his meaning, once more spoke in verse form, saying, "Ajita, you should understand this. These great bodhisattvas, for countless kalpas, have practiced the Buddha wisdom. All have been converted by me. I caused them to set their minds on the great way. These are my sons. They dwell in this world, constantly carrying out dutta practices, preferring a quiet place, rejecting the fret and confusion of the great assembly, taking no delight in much talk. In this manner these sons study and practice my way and law, and in order that day and night with constant diligence they may seek the Buddha way. In this Saha world they dwell in the empty space in its lower part, Firm in the power of will and concentration, with constant diligence seeking wisdom, they expound various wonderful doctrines, and their minds are without fear. When I was in the city of Gaya, seated beneath the Bodhi tree, I attained the highest, the correct enlightenment, and turned the wheel of the unsurpassed law. Thereafter I taught and converted them, caused them for the first time to set their minds on the way. Now all of them dwell in the stage of no regression, and all in time will be able to become Buddhas. What I speak now are true words. With the single mind you must believe them. Ever since the long distant past, I have been teaching and converting this multitude. At that time, the Bodhisattva and Mahasattva Maitreya, as well as the countless other Bodhisattvas, found doubts and perplexities rising in their minds. They were puzzled at this thing that had never happened before and thought to themselves, how could the world-honored one in such a short space of time have taught and converted an immeasurable boundless asmaka number of great bodhisattvas of this sort and enabled them to dwell in Anuttara-samyak-saṃbodhi? Thereupon Maitreya said to the Buddha, world-honored one, when the thus come one was crowned prince, you left the palace of the Shakyas and sat in the place of practice not far from the city of Gaya, and there attained Anuttara-samyak-saṃbodhi. Barely 40 years or more have passed since then. World-honored one, how in that short time could you have accomplished so much work as a Buddha? Was it through the authoritative powers of the Buddha or through the blessings of the Buddha that you were able to teach and convert such an immeasurable number of great bodhisattvas and enabled them to achieve Anuttara-samyak-saṃbodhi? World-honored one, a multitude of great bodhisattvas such as this, a person might spend 1,000, 10,000, 1,000,000 kalpas counting them and never be able to reach the end or discover the limit. What's a kalpa?
A kalpa is like a cosmic time unit, super long, so it's often used in Buddhist texts to express vast, almost incomprehensible spans of time. Think of it as a way to communicate the depth of patience and effort on the spiritual path.
Since the far distant past and the dwelling place of immeasurable balanced numbers of Buddhas, they must have planted good roots, carried out the Bodhisattva way, and engaged constantly in Brahma practices. What are Brahma practices?
Brahma practices, in a Buddhist context, are about cultivating sublime virtues like loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, and equanimity. These are considered divine states of mind and are key in developing a balanced, compassionate, and wise approach to life. Practicing these virtues helps in personal transformation and in guiding others towards enlightenment.
World-honored one, it is hard for the world to believe such a thing. I think the world-honored one is the Buddha. Is that right?
That's right. The world-honored one is a respectful title for the Buddha, acknowledging his enlightenment and his role as a teacher to countless beings. It's a recognition of his wisdom and compassion. So when you hear world-honored one, it's synonymous with speaking about the Buddha himself.
Suppose, for example, that a young man of 25 with ruddy complexion and hair still black should point to someone who was 100 years old and say, "This is my son." Or that the 100-year-old man should point to the youth and say, "This is my father, who served and raised me." This would be hard to believe, and so too is what the Buddha says. It has not in fact been long since you attained the way, but this great multitude of bodhisattvas have already, for immeasurable 1,000, 10,000, millions of kalpas, applied themselves diligently and earnestly for the sake of the Buddha way. They have learned to enter into, emerge from, and dwell in immeasurable hundreds of thousands, 10,000s, millions of samadhis, have acquired great transcendental powers, have over a long period carried out Brahma practices, and have been able, step by step, to practice various good doctrines, becoming skilled in questions and answers. A treasure among persons, something seldom known in all the worlds. A samadhi is a kind of deep-seated meditation. Is that right?
That's exactly right. A samadhi is indeed a profound state of meditation where the mind is fully focused and absorbed. It's like reaching a peak of mental concentration where distractions fade away and you can gain deep insights and spiritual clarity. It's a crucial practice on the path to enlightenment, helping practitioners to realize deeper truths and understand their own mind.
And today, World Honored One, you tell us that in the time since you attained the Buddha way, you have caused these persons for the first time to aspire to enlightenment, have taught, converted, and led them and directed them toward Anuttara-samyak-saṃbodhi. Can you explain that term? Anuttara-samyak-saṃbodhi. Okay, we explained it already. The chat bot is acting up. World Honored One, is it not long since you attained Buddhahood, and yet you have been able to carry out this great meritorious undertaking? We ourselves have faith in the Buddha, believing that he preaches in accordance with what is appropriate. That the words spoken by the Buddha are never false, and that the Buddha's knowledge is in all cases penetrating and comprehensive. Nevertheless, in the period after the Buddha has entered extinction, if Bodhisattvas who have just begun to aspire to enlightenment should hear these words, they will perhaps not believe or accept them, but will be led to commit the crime of rejecting the law. Therefore, World Honored One, we beg you to explain so we may put aside our doubts, and so that in future ages, when good men hear of this matter, they will not entertain doubts. At that time, the Bodhisattva Maitreya, wishing to state his meaning, once more spoke in verse form, saying, in the past, the Buddha departed from the Shaka clan, left his household, and near Gaya sat under the Bodhi tree. Little time has passed since then, yet these sons of the Buddha are immeasurable in number. Already for a long time they have practiced the Buddha way, dwelling in transcendental powers and power of wisdom, skillfully learning the Bodhisattva way, unsoiled by worldly things like the lotus flower in the water, emerging from the earth. All display a reverent and respectful mind, standing in the presence of the World-Honored One. This is difficult to fathom. How can one believe it? The Buddha attained the way very recently, yet those he has helped to gain success are so many. We beg you to dispel the doubts of the assembly, to make distinctions and explain the truth of the matter. It is as though a young man just turned 25 were to point to a 100-year-old man with gray hair and wrinkled face and say, I served him. And the old man were to say, this is my father. The father, youthful, the son, old. No one in the world could believe this. World Honored One, your case is similar. Only very recently you attained the way. These bodhisattvas are firm in will, in no way timid or immature. For immeasurable kalpas, they have been practicing the bodhisattva way. They are clever at difficult questions and answers. Their minds know no fear. They have firmly cultivated a preserving mind, upright in dignity and virtue. They are praised by the Buddhas of the 10 directions as able and adept at preaching distinctions. They have no wish to remain among the crowd, but constantly favor a state of meditation. And in order to seek the Buddha way, they have been dwelling in the space under the earth. This we have heard from the Buddha and have no doubts in the matter. But for the sake of future ages, we beg the Buddha to explain and bring about understanding. If, with regard to this sutra, one should harbor doubt and fail to believe, he will fall at once into the evil paths. So we beg you now to explain these immeasurable Bodhisattvas. How in such a short time did you teach them? Cause them to have aspiring minds and to dwell in the stage of no regression. That's the end of the 15th chapter, Emerging from the Earth. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. If you did listen. Transmission complete. The Bodhisattva didn't descend from heaven. Let me make that plural. The Bodhisattvas didn't descend from heaven. They rose from the earth. If this reflection resonated, drop your thoughts below in the form of a comment. What soil are you rising from? Subscribe to My Dharma Path for mystic transmissions, poetic teachings, and spiritual synthesis. Can you explain Anuttara-samyak-saṃbodhi and the difference between that and Nirvāṇa?
Absolutely, Antoine. Anuttara-samyak-saṃbodhi is often described as the supreme and unsurpassed perfect enlightenment. It's the highest form of enlightenment, where one reaches complete awakening, fully realizing the truth of all things. Nirvāṇa, on the other hand, is the state of liberation from the cycle of birth and death, free from suffering and individual desires. While Nirvāṇa is about ending suffering and escaping the cycle of rebirth, Anuttara-samyak-saṃbodhi is achieving the ultimate wisdom and understanding, often leading to Buddhahood. Both are profound states, but they emphasize different aspects of spiritual realization. Quite the journey, isn't it?
And the Buddha passing into extinction. Explain that.
In Arhat, in Buddhist tradition...
No, not in Arhat. Extinction. The Buddha's passing into extinction.
Sure, Antoine. The Buddha's passing into extinction refers to his parinirvāna, the final passing away after death. It's a state where he is completely freed from the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, having achieved enlightenment. In this extinction, there's no more suffering, desire, or individual existence, often seen as the ultimate peace. It's a profound concept, marking the end of the Buddha's physical presence, but not of his teachings or influence. Quite a beautiful transition to contemplate, huh?
The title of the sutra is Saddharma Pundrika Sutra. Goodbye.